In the Wednesday video, we stepped out of the natural beauty of the gorge, where birds sing and water runs gentle, and into the first expansion of Edgewood Cemetery. We walked among modern monuments and unmarked graves, talking about the damage time and neglect can cause, and about the responsibility we share in caring for our dead. Today we leave the annex behind, walk through the old cemetery, and take a moment to remember those who were segregated and unrecorded, as if their stories carried no weight in history. Just 6 feet across the road, the ground changes, and suddenly we're standing in Edgewood Cemetery. Here the old stones aren't gleaming white, they're aged, weathered, and heavy with the passage of years, each one whispering a name the world has nearly forgotten. Edgewood's story begins with Dr. Zealots H. Mason and his wife Christina. In 1882, Dr. Mason was one of Apopka's earliest physicians. He helped charter what was then known as the town of Apopka City. On March 30th, 1893, he signed a quitclaim deed donating a portion of his property to be used as a cemetery. His timing was impeccable. Just 17 days later, Dr. Zealots Mason became the very first person interred on these very grounds. Dr. Mason may have been the first in this section, but he was far from the last. Walking among the stones, you'll find the names of Apopka pioneer families. There's Cinderella Stewart, the mother of Erastus Stewart, the very first interment at the Old Church Cemetery. The Rollersons, who lost many of their children and laid them to rest in the Old Church Cemetery as well. The Champneys, and so many other familiar names that we spoke about in the Old Church section. The Lovell family were among Apopka's earliest settlers, and before the city had a public burial ground, the Lovells kept a small family cemetery near what is now Lovell's Landing, close to the shores of Lake Apopka. In those early days, private family plots were common. Burials often took place on the land families lived and worked on. But as Apopka grew and the need for a city cemetery became clear, those quiet resting places faded into memory. By the late 1800s, the Lovell name began appearing here at Edgewood. Their move from private family ground to this shared public space mirrors Apopka's own growth and from scattered homesteads to a connected community. Edgewood wasn't just Apopka's resting ground. From the very beginning, it drew families from nearby towns, people who may have lived their lives a few miles away but still chose this soil as their final home. Back then, places like Lockhart, Clarcona, and Zellwood were still little pockets of farmland and sawmill towns, each with more orange trees than people. Cemeteries weren't always established, and word spread pretty quickly when a proper one opened nearby. Families would travel dusty roads or load their wagons onto a rail line, bringing loved ones here to be buried among the pines. Maybe it was the reputation of the place or just the comfort of knowing their family wouldn't rest alone. One of those names is David Cody Hill, a pioneer from the Lockhart area of Orlando. His story, like so many others here, speaks of migration, perseverance, and the quiet weaving together of neighboring histories. We'll visit him again in another video. He's earned his own story. But here, among the moss and the marble, it's easy to see how Edgewood became more than a local landmark. It became a crossroads, a place where whole communities found common ground, even in death. This part of the cemetery feels different. The space here is dense. It's not quiet, but watchful. So many of the graves sit inside family plots, boxed in by stone or metal bars, really, as if each family built a tiny house for their dead alone. There's a lone mausoleum nearby that stands like a shelter from something we can't see. The markers remind me of chess pieces, each one moved by unseen hands into perfect position. There's an elegance to the chaos of an old cemetery. Every stone, every angle seems to be shouting, "Look at me, remember me." Time has softened their edges, faded their words, but not their pride. And walking among them, you can feel that stubborn beauty still holding its ground. The story of Edgewood and Greenwood isn't just about growth. It's also about separation. When these cemeteries were first established, burial was divided by race. Greenwood served the city's white residents. Edgewood also served the city's white residents, while across the road, the black community was buried in what was once called the colored cemetery. It wasn't about distance. It was just a few feet away, but it might as well have been a world apart. Jim Crow laws kept that separation in place for decades, even after the city took over care of the black cemetery in the late 1940s, officially incorporating it into the grounds of Edgewood Greenwood. The burials themselves remained segregated. It wasn't until 1967 that cemeteries in Apopka and across much of Central Florida were finally desegregated, nearly 75 years after the first graves were dug here. Those invisible boundaries were at last allowed to fade. Standing here now, it's impossible not to think about the generations who were kept apart even in death, and how over time the earth itself became the equalizer. The stones may tell separate stories, but the ground holds them all the same. But times they are changing. Walking through the Edgewood section now, knowing its history of segregation, and seeing a black face on a headstone, it just gives me a little bit of the giggles. I can only imagine those past souls who would have never agreed to be laid to rest beside anybody who wasn't lily white, just rolling in their graves. Maybe on the other side, the truth of humanity is a little bit more clear. We're all the same. We live, we love, we build families, we do our best, and then we die. No matter our race, creed, or belief structure, death levels us all. Standing here among the historic stones and the modern ones still being placed, it's an absolute reminder of that absolutely hard truth. Our final chapter in this series is coming soon. I'll be saying goodbye to my favorite cemetery in video form, knowing that I've recorded my thoughts, my feelings, as well as I can. I hope I've gotten all the facts right, but if I didn't, and I learned something new later, good for me! Thanks for listening to me talk to myself, and until next time, wander often, wonder always, and stay safe on those back roads.